If you just joined us, welcome. I'm Bruce Edwards from The Breakfast Show at Doncaster Radio. This, of course, is The Terminal. It's not Terminal podcast.
The Terminal.
The Terminal.
The Terminal.
Well,
the podcast, Bruce. The podcast.
You can edit that out if you want.
Yeah, no, we'll leave it in. It shows we're real, doesn't it?
Very real, very live and proud of it as well. Part, of course, the hashtag Save DSA, Save Doncaster, Sheffield Airport campaign group. This is episode 15. And as I say, joining me in the studio today is the one and only Mr. Mark Chadwick. And our guest today is none other than...
Well, we've got Oliver Coppard.
South
Yorkshire Mayor.
Indeed, in the studio with us this day. Thank you for joining us, Oliver.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Good afternoon, mate.
A good afternoon.
And welcome. I'm just going to jump straight in the deep end. We have a thing, right? We always ask, this is the first question, we always ask everybody who comes into the studio, so no favourites, this is the...
Quite right, too.
This is getting straight down to it, right? Okay. Where were you when you first heard the news about the airport closing down in 2022?
Well, when I heard the news about the so-called strategic review, I was in the office. So I was in the office. We got it in as an email, as you'd imagine. And one of my team came to find me and tell me what they'd said in that email and what that likely meant. And clearly that was pretty bad news at that point, not very welcome. So got straight down to it, really. Started talking to colleagues about what we could do in that situation. How we might move forward, what we thought we might be able to do with Peel, albeit, that relationship clearly developed in the way that it did. And I got straight on the phone. So I was straight on the phone to Ros, as the Mayor of Doncaster. It was important for me to talk to her as part of the MCA. And then next person I think I called was Nick Fletcher. So I called Nick as the local MP in the hope that we could work together to try and save the airport, that we could have a relationship where we'd be able to do that. I hadn't spoken to him before that, but called him on my mobile, gave him my number, my contact details. So look, anything we can do.
You just got the job.
I had, yeah. I was sort of 3 months in, I think, at that point.
Yeah.
So relatively new. Nick and I hadn't had a chance to catch up. We'd been holding MPs meetings. I don't think we'd managed to get Nick to one. So didn't kind of, shy away from that. Wanted to be able to work with Nick, put politics aside. Clearly, I think people know how that relationship ended up, but, we were...
Unfortunately,
right, exactly. Yeah. And, right from the beginning, I was on the front foot trying to work with him because I recognised, as an MP representing the party of government, he was our best way in to get the government to help us. And obviously that didn't work out, but we are where we are. So, that's where I was.
That is now... you think now, here we are in the summer of 2025. That's 3 years ago, pretty much, isn't it, or more, But, the time that's gone, water under the bridge since then, does it feel like things have been dragging for you, or does it feel like, this has really been like, where were we? Goodness me, I didn't realise it was 3 years ago. It feels only like yesterday.
I think it's a bit of both, isn't it? It's a bit like...
3 years ago, nearly to the day, was the public meeting at the Keep Mountain.
Well, I saw your post about that on Facebook. Yeah, it reminded me.
Yeah.
So that, like I say,
was the 4th of August.
We were straight into action. I organised that public meeting, invited Nick to come along to it again, trying to show that sort of united front in terms of what we wanted to try and achieve, and trying to get Peel to the table. We were doing a load of things at that point, weren't you? Remember, we were kind of holding public meetings. I was going out and doing... That wasn't actually the first one. I'd held a meeting
first
before
one,
that.
Rosington, weren't it?
Yeah, I'd held another one before that, and then wanted to do a bigger space. And so, we did that. We were then kind of putting all sorts of offers to Peel about what we needed, what we could do. You'll remember we offered him millions of pounds to keep the airport open, trying to keep the airport alive so that we could find a buyer. We were talking to them about how the government could step in. We were trying to use the Civil Contingency Act to sort of see if the government could help us there, and they refused that help. So we were doing all sorts of things. So we were spending a huge amount of time on trying to keep the airport open, try and keep the project alive. And then obviously when it closed, it moved into a new phase, and we've been working on it ever since. I think it's a bit like, when you go on holiday and you think it's both gone in a flash and you've been there forever. It's a bit like that, isn't it? That's how it feels with this one. It feels like this has been going on.
Don't feel like 3 years.
No, it doesn't at all.
No.
But at the same time, it feels like it has been going on for a long time, and we need to get to a
talking
resolution.
talking to other people and talking to people in the aviation industry, they're surprised at how quick we're moving forward with it.
Yeah, I think people say to me all the time, like, get a move on.
Yeah.
Well, frankly, we are getting a move on. We have absolutely got a move on. I think to go from where we were to where we are now, if you look at some of the
100%.
other airports in this country that have shut down and what's happened, and they've been closed down for years and years and years.
Marston,
exactly.
Kent,
well,
12 years.
I was going to say, there are plans to get Manston reopened, aren't there? But they really are... swimming against the tide, aren't they, down there?
Exactly.
And they've got 500 million of private investment.
Yes,
apparently.
Yes.
Well, Well, you know,
So you think they'd be flying along, wouldn't you?
Indeed.
We'll get the
I mean,
money.
very good.
I
very good.
always take these things with a pinch of salt. You see a lot of stories on the news about, you know, airports getting this amount of investment or that about investment. It's never quite right, that. And so, look, you know, we'll just keep our head down, keep doing what we're doing, and get the answer right, we hope. So, you know, it has been a long time. It's been, from my perspective, too long. We want to kind of get to a decision yesterday, but we've got to do the right thing, dot the I's, cross the T's, and we'll get to that decision in September.
Yeah. Right, thank you.
Brilliant.
Right then, so
Sorry,
shall we start with the questions?
Yeah, go on. Yep. Off you go.
Right, so there's several comments on social media world. I don't think it's the real world sometimes, but on social media world, there's lots of comments. They don't like me, they don't like you, they don't like other people. But there's several comments where people are suggesting that you don't want the airport reopened. What's your comments to them?
All I'd say to those people, and I see those comments, and I read, you know, clearly stay on top of the page and, you know, reading what's said online. And what is interesting, and you're right, what is really interesting is people who come up to me in the street, and I get a number of people coming up to me saying they want the airport open. I get that a lot.
Yeah.
But they all say, thank you for what you've done to try and reopen it so far.
Yeah.
Everybody says that. Everyone's very polite, friendly, nice,
Same.
and I'm sure you get the same
It's
thing.
exactly the same. Yeah.
Online, the commentary is entirely different, isn't it? And I think we need to, as a community, as a society, get away from the idea that the people that shout loudest online are the people that represent us. They don't.
No,
Those
100%.
those people, like you're just a member of the community who decided to step forward and help out and do what you could to try and save this local asset. But there's a bunch of people like that right across our community, and they're the people that represent South Yorkshire for me. And so, you know, I always try and listen to those people first and foremost. But for those people online and elsewhere, frankly, I'm sure this is a conversation down the pub for some people who say that I don't want to reopen the airport. I'd say, judge me on my record.
Yeah.
I'd say, look at all the things I've done right from day one to try and either save the airport or reopen it. I've absolutely put my best foot forward every single time I could. I've brought the MPs together, I've brought the council together, I've brought stakeholders together, I've brought TUI along to meetings, I've set up public meetings. I was the only one that ever set up any public meeting. You know,
we
to
had
talk
one
to
at the
members of
racecourse as
community.
well, didn't we?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm the only one that ever set those up, you know, going out into the community to listen to people, to hear what people wanted, and then try and find a way forward, which doesn't just protect taxpayers, which I'll be honest, I absolutely have to put at the forefront of my thinking. I have to make sure that any money we spend as a public sector is spent well. I can't predetermine any decision until we take that decision alongside those other leaders of the councils in South Yorkshire who all have a say.
Of course, it's not just you making
It's
the
not
decision,
just me.
is it?
I don't
No.
have some big kind of, you know, rubber stamp that gets to either, you know, approve the funding or stop the funding. That's not all on me. We've got to work through this as a community and as one place, South Yorkshire. I've been working with them now for a couple of years to try and get to that decision, and I hope we can make the right decision, but that's not just on me to do it. But I'm clear about what I want. I want to thrive in DSA. So anyone out there that is saying I don't want it reopened, let me be very clear to you and anybody else. I want it reopened. I want it reopened. I want it thriving. I want it to serve our community, not just in terms of flights, but in terms of jobs and growth, freight, private. I want the sustainable aviation hub at the heart of that, which will create great jobs for your kids or anybody else's kids in South Yorkshire.
And well-paid jobs.
Well-paid, good jobs in a new industry at the forefront of a cutting-edge technology. I want those jobs in South Yorkshire. You can't do that overnight.
No.
You've got to dot the I's and cross the T's. And the only way to get this project to be what we all know it can be is to do it properly.
Well, of course, one of my questions later on basically mentions the fact that we've got all the space at the airport.
Yeah. We've got
So
loads of
we're not
space
just
there.
looking at
There's
the airport, are we?
No.
You're
Look,
looking
this
at
is
the
not
full-
just
the full project,
It's not
isn't
just
it?
about an airport. It's not just an airport emotionally.
No.
It's about much more than that for South Yorkshire, but also physically, logistically, it's about much more than an airport. It's about that whole part of Doncaster itself, and then the wider South Yorkshire having access to those facilities, that space, that land, and developing out a world-leading centre for aviation, sustainable aviation, because we're all going to fly in the future. So those
no matter whether Doncaster's open or not, we're still
Right,
going to travel.
Exactly. Those people who say to me, oh, you don't want to do it because you believe in net zero. I do believe in net zero. Yeah, absolutely right. I believe we want to get to net zero in this region. We want to be at the forefront of that. But that means when we fly in 20 years' time, as I'm going to,
Let's
and you're
offset
going
it against
to,
something, haven't we?
right? You've got to do that sustainably.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to lead the way on in South Yorkshire, and that's going to create jobs and growth and a bright future for this region. But we've got to get it right. And if you fail to prepare, you're prepared to fail, and I'm not prepared to put South Yorkshire into that position going forward. We've done that in this region. We've done that before. We've just let our head rule our heart rule our head, and we've run forward at
We're
things.
very passionate South Yorkshire
We're very
people, aren't we?
passionate people, it turns out. So we do lots of things like that. Doesn't always make for the best plan.
No.
And actually, I am determined to put us in the best possible place. If we can take that decision in September, we absolutely will, and then we will hopefully see that airport thrive, and that's exactly what I want, because it is a huge opportunity for us.
That's brilliant. That's good to hear, mate. That's brilliant. So, funding. This is a bit of a tricky one, this one, but basically the funds for Doncaster Sheffield Airport are coming from Doncaster's gain share pot. Is that correct?
Not quite.
Not quite.
But go ahead with the question.
That's how it looks anyway.
Yeah, I can see what people are saying.
So then we've got people suggesting that how come all 4 Metropolitan Boroughs Councils or whatever are contributing to the Sheffield trams, yet Doncaster appears to be covering the airport all by themselves, yet the airport will benefit whole of South Yorkshire.
So first things first, the gain share pot is South Yorkshire's allocation of money that we get from the government. It's £30 million for 30 years, and we can borrow against it. And the reason why we're doing it in the way we are, using gain share money, is because that's the most available pot of funds that we have. A lot of the other funds that we have for, say, I don't know, skills funding or some of the money that we get for other things, we can't use it in the same flexible way, but we can use gain share funding in that way. And that money is for South Yorkshire to use on our priorities as a region.
Okay.
That's why the other leaders have to agree it, because it's not just Doncaster's money, it's South Yorkshire's money.
Right.
In the same way that Doncaster has to agree the allocations and the money for other places as well. So if Barnsley want to do a big project or Sheffield want to do a big project, then absolutely Doncaster, Ros in particular, has to agree that money as well. So it is always a South Yorkshire project.
Okay.
And we work on that basis on everything. So we're working on that basis on the Supertram, where the money for the Supertram isn't just coming from the transport levy, it's coming from, for instance, the City Regional Sustainable Transport Settlement Fund.
Okay, yeah.
So that's going into the tram, and going forward it'll be something called TCF, which is essentially the same funding but a different name. And so that money is, again, it's South Yorkshire's money, and we've all got to agree it, but we've got to fund the things that need funding. It's not about where they are. I frankly couldn't care less if it's in Sheffield, Doncaster.
It gets very parochial, doesn't it?
Yeah, if it's in South Yorkshire, I want it to succeed. I want it to thrive. And if it's a good project, we should be backing it with our money in South Yorkshire. And that is what we're trying to do in the region. I just want to also make the case about the tram, because I know people in Doncaster say to me frequently, it's not ours. Well, I want it to be. I want it to be Doncaster's tram. I want to bring the tram out to Doncaster.
There was plans originally.
Exactly. And I want to bring the tram out to the rest of South Yorkshire. Now, if we're going to do that, the thing has to thrive. It has to succeed on its current footprint so we can extend it out further. The best way for the airport to succeed is to have a tram network, a train network, whatever it might be, out there. And those are the plans that we're looking at going forward. We've also put, let's not forget, another 30 million in from government that government have said now we're going to get as well. And there's more money. Yeah. And there's more money that we've put in already from South Yorkshire through just the MCA's funding, where we've had spare bits of cash to keep this project going and alive. So there's all sorts of different pots of money, all of which is South Yorkshire's money and all of which is going into the airport, and all of which I'm really pleased we are using, because it's the best possible way to get that airport to where we need it to be.
Thanks for clearing that up. That's brilliant.
I was just listening to you, what you were saying there, Oliver, about all these different things. And yet some people, although, if they've been following your posts on social media and when you've been making public statements at meetings and stuff like that, some people still want to take the opinion that SIMCA, South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority, somehow has some kind of ambivalent stance towards Doncaster Sheffield Airport. Why do you think people keep attacking it? Because it's effectively, I don't know if they're trying to undermine it, but why is it you think that people still have this view that you're ambivalent about the airport, that you don't care whether it opens or closes or whatever?
So I'd say it's three things. One, it's really complicated, this stuff, and there are some people who've, let's be honest, been in this space usually just before an election, who've tried to muddy the water and explain things not in the most helpful ways, not in the most accurate ways, quite honestly, and that I think has led to any number of misunderstandings about how this stuff works and who wants to do what. And I'll leave it at that, but there's certainly an element of that, because it is dead complicated. We've got absolute teams of experts working on this stuff, and it is complicated stuff. The funding, the approach, what we're doing, the assurance, everything is complicated. More complicated than I would like, but that's just the way that the funding works and the legal system works and everything else. Secondly, I have a duty to taxpayers. I have a duty and a responsibility to protect taxpayers' money, because as much as I might have a view, and you have a view, and you have a view, and our views are probably quite similar about what we want to see, I represent the whole of South Yorkshire. And whether I like it or not, there are some people in South Yorkshire who don't necessarily want to.
Well, in fact, you did say just a few minutes ago, your priority is the taxpayer in South Yorkshire.
Yes. The taxpayer in South Yorkshire is the person, the people, us collectively, who are going to be paying for this airport. So we've got to get this deal right for taxpayers if we're going to move forward. If we don't get that deal right, it will fall. it won't work, and we won't be able legally either to spend that money. It has to be a good deal for taxpayers, or legally I can't spend it. I can't sign it off. Legally, I mean, I'm not saying just metaphorically or just notionally. Legally, technically,
the sums have got to add up.
Unless the sums add up, I can't sign it off. So it's got to work for everybody. That's the second thing. And then thirdly, people also don't understand. I can't prejudge this decision. Again, legally, I can't prejudge it. I can say what I would like to do, but legally, I cannot prejudge this decision, because that decision can only be taken in that meeting by the leaders of South Yorkshire together with me. That's the only time that decision can be taken. And if I prejudge that decision now by saying to you, you know what, we're going to do it no matter what, we could get a legal challenge from Leeds Bradford. We could get a legal challenge from anywhere else. Now, look, that's got to be right. And frankly, right at this moment in time, speaking to you right now, I still don't know if we can get it over the line, because we're still doing the work. And in that meeting, that's when we'll take that decision. And that is the right way to do it, to protect the airport and give it its best possible future.
How many people are on the board?
Of the MCA.
South Yorkshire,
So there's me and then the 4 leaders of the local authority. So there's 5 of us.
Okay.
And essentially we have to do things by a majority. So we just have to decide how we're going to move forward. So technically on the day, we could take a decision with 3 in favour and 2 against. We don't like to work in that way because we're colleagues and we like to work together. It's better for the whole of South Yorkshire if we can take a decision as a group. Because frankly, that just is a better way of moving forward. So I would very much imagine we will be able, either way, to get to a decision where we're all in agreement, because that's the best possible way to move forward. But there are 5 of us, 1 for each of the local authorities, the leaders essentially, the mayor obviously in Doncaster's case, and then me as well as the chair of the board.
Right. So the other people that are on the board aren't decision makers. The other people that are present on your board meetings when you have them.
So the other people that are sitting around the table when you watch that, no, they are people kind of essentially helping us to do things legally and above board. Yeah. So I've got my lawyer sat next to me, my chief exec sits next to me. Some of the people that present papers,
just to give people an explanation of what they can see on TV.
So the chief finance officer, for instance, Gareth, will come along and give a report about what's going on with the finances. So it's all kind of very transparent, and the person that's kind of reporting is the expert in that field, rather than me reading out a paper when actually they're the person that actually speaks to the subject.
Yeah, and they know what they know what's
they know their
going
stuff.
on. They do. Yeah, that's cool. That's interesting, isn't
it? It is indeed.
Only 5 people make the decision in the end.
Well, you see, 5, you've got to have a majority, or you can have a majority. You see, you can't really have a tie.
No.
Yeah. So in Greater Manchester, for instance, they've got 10 local authorities and the mayor.
The old Manchester Airport Group as well.
So that's a bigger challenge.
Oh, look, there's a publicly owned.
Well, indeed.
Airport.
And then up in North Yorkshire, they've got David and 2 local authorities. So, there's different systems in different places. In our region, clearly South Yorkshire is 4 places. So we've got 4 places in me, and that's how the board works.
Right, cool, that's good. So we've seen this procurement process ongoing recently, last year. Identified several possible investors. Is there still an appetite for private sector investment in the future?
Yes.
And will the investment zone help attract them back or attract new investors?
Yes, that's exactly the plan, essentially. So look, let's be clear, let's be frank. We all know, because you watch the airport just as closely as I do. The model's changed, hasn't it? Because right at the outset, what we said we wanted was we want a private sector investment fully.
Yeah.
That's changed. And that's changed because we went through that process and it wasn't the best deal. We didn't want to do a deal that wasn't the best possible deal. So we've taken a new approach, and that's why we've needed new assurance doing, partly because then it was a bit out of date, the stuff that we had.
Partly 3 years ago, isn't it?
Exactly, and partly because we needed to make sure that we had everything we could possibly need. So things like, for instance, an equalities impact assessment. Some people might scoff at that. You've got to do it. Legally, you've got to do this stuff. Otherwise, again, you're open to challenge, delays it further. So again, it's taking longer if you don't do it than if you do. You've got to do everything like the commercial review. So like, what are the airlines that want to fly out of the airport? What routes might they fly? What does that look like if they do? Is that going to stack up in terms of the finances? You've got to look at the wider Gateway East infrastructure. Have we got enough roads going in there? Are there blockages that if it gets busy are going to cause us problems? What's going on with the energy and the power situation? What's going on with water? What are we doing with this EAA? All of these things stack up, and we've needed to assure ourselves before we can take that decision that we've got the answers to all of those questions, because if we don't have them, when we get into that world, all of a sudden it's going to fail. And if you want the airport to succeed, you want every single answer in your folder before you crack on and spend 150, 200 million, whatever it might be. Before you do that, you want the answers, and that is the only right way to do it. And I honestly don't think there's a business out there, if it was spending the same amount of money we are, that wouldn't do at least what we're doing. At least what we're doing to find out what we need to do, what's under the hood, what's under the bonnet.
I mean, it's quite entrepreneurial, isn't it?
Yeah.
for a council or an authority.
It's a big, commercial, complicated deal, and we've got real experts now working on it. We've brought people in. Guy who did the sale of Stansted to Manchester Airport Group. Working with him. We're working with a bunch of different people from.
Yeah, Bradshaw's last year, didn't you?
Yeah, we got a load of. We've got real experts in this field now working with us, helping us think through these challenges, so we're prepared, we're ready, and we know what we're doing. Because if we don't know what we're doing, I guarantee you, those people right now who are shouting loudest about us reopening the airport, who've got a different maybe political persuasion to me, they'll turn round in 6 months' time and say, "You should have done more. You should have done it differently. We told you should have."
Yeah.
Absolutely not the case. But that's what they'll do, because this is a big political
football. We see it all the time, don't we?
Exactly. And I want to get this right for South Yorkshire first and foremost. So we're going to do everything we can to have the answers before we embark on the project.
Well, I think you've answered my next question with that one there. So
I was going to say. So as I'm sure you know, Oliver, Mark's Facebook group. I've never seen
anything. You're going to say Mark's face there.
Well, you could do, yes.
Keeps kids away from fire. Says having a fire guard.
We'll come back to having a statue of Mark outside the Arrivals building another time. But that's something for a different podcast, maybe. Maybe we could have a
Christian. I tell you, me and Christian are going to have a bench with his names on it. And we're going to have to buy it ourselves.
We're going to have a public vote. That would be interesting to get a casting of public spending on. That's for sure. But 29,000 people in one Facebook group, all with, and I mean, don't even talk about the third runway at Heathrow, although you can if you want, or not, as the case may be. But look, I mean, everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet, everybody wants it. I think everybody wants it because it's a source of pride. There's a community need. The business community want the airport. We've had pretty much now support from Parliament all the way up to the Prime Minister, local MPs, of course, as well. This must give you. What does it give you in sort of the day-to-day process when you see this and you see this groundswell of opinion from people in the street to people at the very top of decision-making in Parliament? How does that make you feel?
Look, it gives me huge optimism that we've got a group of people who are so passionate about a project that we're working on and we want to succeed. So that's always great, isn't it? When you've got such passionate people. And
encouragement.
Huge amounts of encouragement. It really does. But you know what else it gives me as well? Which it gives me a sense that the system's working. Because the way this system's supposed to work is people in this community are supposed to, through devolution, have more say over their own future. They're supposed to be able to say to somebody who is local to them, who goes to the same pub, walks the same streets, uses the same roads. Someone like me, I live in Sheffield, but I live my life in South Yorkshire, able to come up to me and say, "Look, I really want this thing. Can you fix it for me?" And if there's enough people with enough enthusiasm for something, I've got to try and do that, right? And that's the way the system, that's the way democracy is supposed to work. It's supposed to be the way politics works. And it hasn't always worked like that for us. Let's be frank. In South Yorkshire, we've not always had that. We've just had the news about the Orgreave inquiry, haven't we? We remember, don't we? Back in the day, back in the 80s, I was a bit young, but I remember certainly the news reports about, people standing up for themselves saying, "Don't do this to us," and the government just ignoring them. They just ignored them. They just said, "We're going to close those pits. We're going to close those steelworks. Sod you. We don't care about your future. We've taken a decision in London. We don't understand your communities. We don't understand your workplaces. We don't understand what this means to you. We're going to close it." And we've got a different system now where we've got a mayor. And a mayor who's directly elected by people in this region to listen and to learn and to try and do what that community wants. So for me, where I can then go to, as I have done, directly to the Prime Minister, directly to the Chancellor, directly to the Deputy Prime Minister, the Secretary of State for Transport, and say to them, "This is what we want to do in our region, and I need your help." And it's not a coincidence that those people have now come out and said, "We're backing it." It's because I've been on the phone, I've been doing the work to get them on side and get them supported and explain to them what it means to us. That's how this system is supposed to work. That's what democracy looks like. That's what politics should look like. And hopefully that's what devolution looks like, with a mayor who listens to people. So, can't prejudge the decision, as I say, but I am listening every day, watching the Facebook page, listening to people, talking to people down the pub about what they want to see. And that informs my thinking every single day.
Yeah. So this will prove the system right or wrong.
I hope so, yeah. That's that's the way the system's supposed to work. When people say, in a region, in a place, "I want this thing," Who can help me to do it? And I think a lot of our current frustrations in this country are from people who feel as though they've been cut out of the decision-making process entirely. They feel like they've been left behind, left out. They've got no agency to change the world around them, and things go wrong. And who do you turn to? You can't turn to your trade union anymore because maybe you don't work in a unionised workplace. You can't turn to your boss because it's a multinational company. You try and speak to your counsellor, but they don't have enough influence. Who can actually act on your behalf if you live in this place called South Yorkshire? Well, I can. I hope. So I've got to be able to listen and learn and work with our community and do things like this and come and have these conversations and be out on the street and organise public meetings as I did and as I have and as I will continue to do, to make sure I'm listening at all times to what people want. And it's complicated, isn't it, sometimes, because there's not one unified voice. We don't all speak one voice in this region. But I'm determined to keep on taking that approach and listening so people can see, actually, it's not in vain. You have got power, you have got agency, and it comes hopefully through devolution and through having a mayor.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So, back to government. They gave us £30 million.
They did.
Extra devolved funds from Keir Starmer when we were at DSA in March.
They
we
did
went
indeed.
to DSA, we were at 2XL, weren't we? And was this new money?
So I saw
Are
this.
the ring-fenced £30 million for the train line still ring-fenced by the Department for Transport?
Right. So I saw some people try and just
Discredit what we're going off.
Yeah, absolutely. Now look, and on the one hand, I couldn't care less.
Yeah.
What, whether it's new money, old money, whether someone's found it down the back of the sofa or it's dropped on your head from a great height. I don't care, and I don't think most people care.
No,
quite honestly,
it's 30 million
it's 30 million quid
towards
for the
our project,
airport,
isn't it?
and therefore I think most sensible people just kind of say thank you and let's move on. So that's where I was, and I did a load of work to try and get that money into South Yorkshire because it was not easy to get that. As you can imagine, getting 30 million quid out of the government's never easy, rightly, quite honestly. But I did a load of work to get there. That money is money that we otherwise would not have had. Let me be absolutely clear. We otherwise would not have had that money coming into the project because the government previously had said that money was not available to us for the project. They'd been very clear about that. You'll remember the letters that went back and forth.
Yep.
We got 30 million quid that otherwise the airport wouldn't have got. And on top of that, coming down the track in a few years' time is a bigger settlement, £1.2 billion, and then more money after that, which allows us to make the decisions about what we want from our transport system going forward.
Yep.
Now, that means the airport project is going to be on that list of things we want to support through public transport infrastructure spending, whatever that might look like. And so we can use the money we've got later down the line when the airport's up and running, hopefully, and when hopefully we've got a thriving DSA, we would be able at that point to use the money that we get then, as well as having the 30 million up front. Now that's got to be good news for South Yorkshire, and anybody that tries to say, "Oh no, that wasn't new money," or that was already built in, or the last government didn't, did they? The last government said no when we asked them for that money. So let's be clear,
It was a flat no.
So let's be clear, it is good news for South Yorkshire they got that money, and those people who want to tear it down, frankly, go outside and touch a bit of grass.
Now,
frankly.
we'll have some more later on to use for that project.
Exactly.
Well, Mark, did you just hear what Oliver Coppard said there? I think he let a little bit of a cat out of the bag because he did say money coming down the track. Now, does that mean there's a row extension? have we caught him out?
Well, you're not a train spotter as well, are you, Bruce?
Freudian.
I'm not, but
the tram track.
Sorry, the train enthusiast.
Put the cat amongst the pigeons with a tram track.
No, that's my late dad was a train spotter. He used to be manic.
Train enthusiast, mate.
I'll tell you what, if he wasn't at home, my grandparents knew where to find him. It was on the train platforms at Penistone Station many years ago. No, I mean, it's just saying, aviation. Since before COVID and the closure of DSA, and now effectively global aviation now back to where it was pre 2020. A lot of airports announcing investment and growth, another load of airports wanting to expand, and frankly they can't because they're ring-fenced by greenbelt land, or they just completely ring-fenced by urban areas, full stop. It does help, again, with, giving the project momentum, surely. Or this kind of... Because we know there's almost like... It's almost like the reverse of a perfect storm, a virtuous circle. You've got the right airport, the right size of airport, in the right place, at the right time, with the right space, and the right workforce in the area, ready to roll up the sleeves and muck in.
Yeah, well, look, I don't need to repeat to this audience, certainly not in this room, but even the people listening to this, about the benefits of DSA, do I? About the runway that we've got, the asset that we've got there. I don't need to convince you guys, but that's absolutely right. Like, there is a massive asset there, a huge opportunity, and it is particularly relevant to us because of some of the things we're already doing in the region. So you look at, for instance, the work that's going on with Boeing. Massive manufacturers.
On the
everybody
old
will
Sheffield
know,
City Airport
right?
site.
And their only manufacturing facility in the whole of Europe is in South Yorkshire, and that's because of our expertise at lightweighting of materials and what we're able to do in that space in terms of sustainable aviation. You look at what's going on in the University of Sheffield. The University of Sheffield powered the first transatlantic flight when it was a net zero transatlantic flight through the SAF, through the sustainable aviation fuels or synthetic aviation fuels. So